Preshow for Monster Monday. My name is DM Gallibond, and you're listening to Sirenscape. We'll get started in just about a minute here. Just gonna finish setting up the monitors that I have in place. Hope everybody has had a pleasant Monday. And we'll be getting started here momentarily. All right. Well, we're going to step away from the stage here where our musicians are. And let's come on over here. Let's go get a little bit farther away. We'll come to a nice little corner over here by the fire, and we're gonna go ahead and come on this way and say welcome. Welcome everybody to Monster Monday. My name is DM Gallibond, and tonight on Monster Monday we are going to continue our look at the monsters from the Strixhaven, a Curriculum of Chaos campaign that came out last year from Wizards of the Coast. And this time we are going to be looking at the school mascots as a group. Now, you'll see as we go through this particular campaign and this particular adventure that there are going to be a number of monsters that kind of get repeated, and there's variations of them, usually within the same type of monster across the different schools. And when we run into those types of situations, we are just going to go ahead and address those as a single unit. Thus it is that we will be looking at the monsters from the school mascots. All right, so let's go ahead and let's get started with that. Tonight, we're looking at school mascots. Now, the origins of the monster are from Magic the Gathering, because Strixhaven is another one of those properties that started as a Magic the Gathering expansion and moved across to the other side of the shop and was packaged and presented as a campaign in D&D. And so most of the crossover things have been that way. Of course, there has been that one Magic the Gathering release, Heroes of Waterdeep or whatever it was called, and where it started from the Forgotten Realms and it went over to Magic the Gathering and was released as an expansion there. But the Strixhaven expansion in Magic the Gathering has one card that basically talks about mascots, and that is a sorcery that's called Mascot Exhibition. It's a 7 casting class sorcery, and what it basically does, it allows you to create 3 tokens. And these tokens don't have a lot in common, but see if you can spot what the similarities are. You create a 2/1, that's 2 power, 1 toughness, white and black Inkling creature token with flying. A 3/2 red and white spirit creature token, and a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. So what does that tell you? That tells you that all of these tokens are multicolor. So that can be, depending on the type of game you're playing in Magic, that can be good or bad. Because if your opponent is trying to block things, and the block depends on what color they are, well, they have to block both colors in order to block these. Oh, wait a minute. Is that right? No, that's not right. Anyway, in some ways having multicolor monsters helps you. In other ways, it hurts you. Because, it's like anything that can affect white will affect both a white and black and a red and white creature. So, yeah, and then anything that gives power to a white token or gives a benefit to white tokens will help both a white and black and a white and red. So it all depends on which side of the battle and what the meta is and how your opponent's deck is constructed and how your deck is constructed. So much like the archaic from last week, mascots are creatures given full definition for the first time in the D&D campaign. They appear only on this one card in the entire Strixhaven School of Mages expansion for Magic the Gathering. So in the card Mascot Exhibition, you cast a spell and you create 3 tokens. And in the lore for Strixhaven School of Mages, the mascots only are mentioned in passing. So they're fleshed out and they're given stat blocks, but in the lore they're only briefly mentioned here. There's reference to a scene involving a game of Mage Tower, where the object appears to be to capture another team's mascot in a cross between Capture the Flag from Childhood Playgrounds and Quidditch from the Harry Potter universe. So in the D&D source book for Strixhaven, A Curriculum of Chaos, mascots are more fully detailed as living embodiments of the magic of each college that operate as assistants in magical experiments and sometimes act as companions in combat. And their role in the game of Mage Tower is more fully detailed because there's a whole chapter dedicated to Mage Tower in the campaign. So you find out a lot more about the rules and how the mascots figure in that game and all those types of things. So this image, of course, is the Mascot Exhibition, and the artwork here is by Randy Vargas. All right, so that's kind of a little bit of background of what the mascots are. So tonight we're going to look at the 5 different mascots that appear in the Strixhaven, A Curriculum of Chaos campaign. So each mascot is as unique as the school it represents. Mechanically, they have a few things in common, and we'll look at that when we go and we look at the mechanical features of each of these mascots. So from the College of Lorehold, you have the Spirit Statue mascot, and that's what we have pictured here. To enhance their studies of the past, Lorehold students often call upon the spirits of dead creatures. Mages seeking longer-term assistance from ancient spirits have learned to house those spirits in statues, giving them a more permanent residence from which to assist the living. And then from the College of Prismari, we have Art Elemental Mascots, and we'll see that in a few moments. Often referred to as living expressions, an art elemental is an aspect of creativity and emotion given physical form, making it the perfect mascot for Prismari College. And then there's the College of Quandrix, which is a fractal mascot. To the untrained eye, fractal mascot looks like a creature made from facets of hard light, but arithmancers know that these fractals are actually living equations, artificial life forms created by extrapolating magic from the mathematical patterns in nature. Then there's the College of Silverquill, which has the Inkling Mascot. So squelching slightly as they wriggle through the air, Inklings serve as the mascots for Silverquill. These living blobs of shadowy ink are often summoned by professors who require assistance in their writing workshops because the Inklings provide endless ink, or they are summoned by lonely students hoping for company as they study. And then finally, with the College of Witherbloom, we have the Pest Mascot. Now, the Pest Mascots are grumpy, spiky, and generally irritating, and they inhabit the muggy bayous of Sedgemoor. However, these ferret-sized swamp creatures hold deep wells of life essence, making them convenient fuel sources for the magic of Witherbloom mages. As such, many Witherbloom students have adopted pests from the bayou as pets, and pests in all their spiny glory have become the mascot of the college. So once again, this is an image of the Spirit Statue mascot from the Curriculum of Chaos campaign. And now this is an image of the Art Elemental Mascot. So you can see it's got like a vaguely animal form, a four-legged animal with all of this fiery stuff coming off of it. And you can kind of see how, if you think back to that description out of the Magic the Gathering card, they kind of did, kind of had an idea of how to create the artwork for these, so it evokes that idea of them being multicolored that you might find from the Magic the Gathering game, thinking about the mana sources that are there. So the mascot lore. In addition to being pals in Magical Experimental Lab and study halls, mascots are used in the game of Mage Tower. So in this game, each college assembles a team of 5 players, and each team then has a mascot, which is placed at the top of one of 2 towers at opposite ends of the playing field. And the object of the game is to capture the other team's mascot and bring it back to your team's tower before they can secure your mascot and take it to theirs. First team to achieve this feat scores a point, and the team with the most points at the end of the game is declared the winner. So since mascots are living creatures, they have ways of defending themselves and going back to their own tower if they escape before being taken to the other goal. So harming a mascot or an opposing player during a game is grounds for getting a red card expulsion from the match. So it's kind of like I said, it's kind of like that cross between capture the flag, because you gotta go to where the flag is and grab the flag and take it back to your base on your side of the playing field. But it's also kind of like Quidditch, because these mascots are living beings, and if the other team grabs it, well, it's going to try to get away, and it's going to try to go back to its tower. So it kind of has that, in the theater of the mind, if you will, in playing D&D, it's kind of got that sort of crossover between those 2 games. And then we come to the monster lore. And this is an image here of the Fractal Mascot from the Strixhaven campaign. So in the second year chapter of the adventure, several mascots have eluded cataloging and tagging by a professor who enlists the PC's help. While completing this task, the PCs uncover some strange occurrences that are related to the overall plot of the campaign. So they appear in the D&D campaign, but only kind of as one of the a target of one of the tasks that the players have to do. And then, of course, there's a chance later in that campaign for the players to act as a team in the game of Mage Tower. And so then they would have the mascot, and sort of I guess if you had more than 5 players in your group, you could have 5 players being their PCs, and the 6th player could, instead of running his or her character for that session, could actually run the mascot. And then that would let the DM control the other team and the other team's mascot, and then the mascot and the players of the team represented by the PCs could then oppose and try to figure out how they would want to win the game. So in this section of the campaign, we learned that students can wrangle mascots by use of physical skill checks such as athletics or acrobatics. They can also use non-physical skills like persuasion or deception to entice a mascot into compliance with their wishes. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do this tagging in this section of the campaign, and one is by simply sort of overpowering and immobilizing the mascot in order to get the tag or the collar on it. And then the other one is to sort of persuade, entice, or deceive the mascot into willingly wearing the tag or wearing the collar. All right. Now this is a picture here of the Inkling Mascot from the Strixhaven campaign. So the creature type here as we've talked about all the time, creatures in D&D, they all have types. But this is one group of creatures that has a varied creature type. So I said I said that they all share certain mechanical features, but the creature type for these creatures, these mascots, is not one of the shared features. The art elemental mascots are classified as elementals. The Fractal Mascot and Spirit Statue mascots are constructs. The Inkling mascots are oozes, and the Pest mascots are monstrosities. And so now we're going to go and we're going to look at the different mechanical features of these. And if I have set this up correctly, yes, I have. Okay, we are on the Art Elemental Mascot. And this is a small creature with an armor class of 11, 18 hit points, a speed of 30 feet, and it doesn't have any kind of other mobility, no flying or no climbing or anything like that, no swimming speed. The has a relatively weak stat block with only 1 or 2 decent scores. It does have some damage resistances and damage immunities and a condition immunity. Passive perception of 10, and it's a challenge rating of 1/4. And then this one has a death burst. So when it dies, it explodes in a burst of colored light, and each creature within 5 feet has to make a constitution save or be blinded for 1 minute. And then it has weapon attacks, a joyful flare, which can hit somebody within 5 feet and deals fire damage, or a melancholic bolt is a range out to 30 feet, and it deals cold damage. And then Captivating Artistry, something it do once a day. It targets one creature, and it must make a DC 12 Charisma save or be charmed for 1 minute. And the charmed target can repeat the save at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself as a success. So, challenge rating 1/4. You know you're not going to be using this against high-level parties, so that's why all the DCs of these are pretty modest. And, not terribly difficult, but it might be a challenge for an average first-level character to make some of these DCs and beat some of them. So then we come to the, oh gosh, stupid thing. All right, then we come to the Fractal Mascot. And the Fractal Mascot is a small construct. It's got an armor class 12, 27 hit points, and once again, speed of 30 feet. No climb, no fly, no swim, no nothing. Again, a fairly modest stat block. A damage immunity and a condition immunity. Passive perception of 10 and a challenge rating of 1/4. So we're starting to see some of the things that these have in common. They've got the challenge rating, and most of them, if not all of them, have some damage resistances and or immunities and condition immunities. But the way they work mechanically and how they attack and defend themselves is different for most of them. So relative density. Fractal can move through creatures and objects as they were difficult terrain, and it takes 5 force damage if its turn ends inside an object. So a lot of times some of the spectral creatures or shadow creatures or things like that, that's a similar thing that these guys have. And then his actions, it's got the Quantum Strike. So it's a reach of 5 feet, deals 3 force damage or 6 force damage if the fractal is medium-sized or larger. And then as bonus actions, it can augment or diminish itself. So in augment, the fractal size increases by 1 category. While the fractal is medium or bigger, it makes strength checks and saving throws with advantage. So the fractal can become no larger than huge via this bonus action. So it starts off as a small construct, but then it can become a medium construct, and then a large construct, and then a huge construct. And then on the diminished, the fractal size decreases by 1 category. While the fractal is tiny, it makes attack rolls, dexterity checks, and dexterity saving throws with advantage. Fractal can become no smaller than 1 foot in height via this bonus action. So this fractal is allowed to change its size, and does that with the augment and diminish bonus actions. Alright, then we're going to take a look at the Inkling Mascot. So this is a tiny ooze, typically neutral, armor class 13, 18 hit points, speed of 10 feet, and a fly speed of 30 feet. So again, movement of 30, but this time it has a fly speed. And then it's got the again the modest stat block, the damage immunities and condition immunities, and challenge rating again of 1/4. It's amorphous, so it can move through a space as narrow as 1 inch wide without squeezing. Actions are blot. It's a melee attack, reaches 5 feet, and hits one target with psychic damage. An ink spray once per day. It sprays viscous ink at one creature within 15 feet. Make a DC 12 Constitution save or be blinded until the end of the Inkling's next turn. And then bonus actions are Shadow Stealth. So while it's in dim light or darkness, the Inkling takes the hide action as a bonus action. Okay, so then we come over and we look at the Pest Mascot. And this Pest Mascot is a tiny monstrosity, unaligned, armor class 13, 22 hit points, the modest stat block, as we've come used to. Actually, this one has this. No, I guess it's pretty modest. The Constitution's a little bit higher on this one than on most of them, but it still has 2 of those low scores, scores below 8. Then challenge rating is 1/4. This one does not have any damage immunities or damage resistances or condition immunities. However, in lieu of that, it has regeneration, so it regains 5 hit points at the start of its turn if it has at least 1 hit point. If it takes fire damage, this trait doesn't function. So that's like several of the regenerating undead. If you hit them with fire damage, they usually don't regenerate. So Spiny Hide, at the start of each of its turns, the pest deals 2 damage or 1d4 to any creature grappling it or that it grapples, and then its attack action is a bite for 1 piercing damage. So that's the little Pest Mascot. And then we have the Spirit Statue Mascot. So the Spirit Statue Mascot is a medium-sized construct. So you've seen most of these are small. The Pest one is tiny, and the Spirit Statue is, well, I think maybe the Inkling is tiny as well. So the Pest and the Inkling are tiny. The Fractal and the Art Elemental are small, and then the Spirit Statue is medium. So armor class of 14, hit point of 26. Again, kind of that basic stat block, nothing to write home about. Challenge rating of 1/4. It doesn't have any damage resistances or immunities or condition immunities, but it also has that death burst. So when it's reduced to 0 hit points, it crumbles and the spirit returns to the afterlife in a burst of ghostly white flame. So each creature within 5 feet must succeed on a con save or take 1d6 radiant damage. And then its actions are to slam. Its slam attack deals 1d6 plus 2 bludgeoning damage. And Council of the Dead, it touches 1 creature. Once within the next 10 minutes, that creature can roll a d4 and add the number rolled to 1 ability check of its choice immediately after rolling the d20. So that is the Spirit Statue Mascot. So you see how it's a whole collective group of different types of creatures, but they all share that CR 1/4 uh, challenge rating, and they all have modest attacks and modest stat blocks and everything. Yeah. Hey viewers, thank you guys for joining us this evening. Hope you are enjoying our discussion here. We're going to go back to the slides, and we are going to continue looking at how you might use these mascots in encounters. So here's a picture, an enlarged picture of the Pest Mascot, and as we've said, these mascots are all CR 1/4. So that means that if you're trying to make a hard encounter for a party, a single mascot is trivial challenge even to an entire level 1 party. So you have to use multiples of these. And because I like to build encounter groups with creatures of like kind, since these are sort of all over the place as different creature types, you can only build or I'm only giving you examples of building encounters with all mascots. Now, if you are pulling these mascots out of this campaign and putting them into a homebrew setting, and for instance, this guy here, this Pest Mascot, is a monstrosity, then you might look at other monstrosities you would use along with the Pest Mascot to make a tougher encounter for your party. So if you want to make a hard encounter for a level 1 party, you would use 4 of the mascots. It could be all the same mascot, or it could kind of be a situation like where mascots are run amok and, a whole bunch of different mascots attack the party at the same time. In fact, that might be a really interesting scenario that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. For a level 2 party, to make that a hard encounter, you would use 7 mascots instead of 4. And then for a level 3 party, you can use anywhere between 9 and 13 mascots. Now, 9 is sort of the low end of the scale of a hard encounter. If you really want to test them, but you don't want to give them kind of enough to do a TPK, then you can throw 13 of the mascots at your party. Although that's a lot of work for you behind the screen, because even if you give all the mascots a single initiative count, then you have to figure out where they're all going on that turn, and the players are going to be sitting around waiting for you. Okay, this one goes there, that one goes there, this one goes there, that one goes there, and this one bites you, this one bites you, this one tries to hit you with something, this one deals with saying you need to roll a save, blah 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 blah. So it can be a long turn the more of these things you have out on the board at one time. All right, so now if you're a player and you come up against a group of mascots, what are some tactics? Well, there's really only one tactic, and that is to know the enemy. Each of the mascots has different abilities, resistances, immunities, and they deal various damage types. So if you're lucky, you'll face all mascots of the same type. And if you're not lucky, you better hope that your party has an array of damage abilities and resistances available, because they can hit you with a lot of different things when a whole bunch of mascots get together and gang up on you. Alright, now if you are behind the DM screen and you're throwing a group of mascots at a party, this can be entertaining and challenging as a fight. So you throw a whole basket of various mascots at a low-level party. Individually, these monsters are very weak, but the ability to deal different damage types and have resistance or immunity from certain kinds of damaging spells can have a group of novice adventurers start to learn to think tactically. So, imagine, if you will, a party where, just sort of as happenstance, they all, let's say, have spells that deal fire. Well, really, it would really be unfortunate for them if you ran into mascots that had all, immunity to all fire damage. Well, then now you're stuck with just kind of hitting them with non-magical means. And if it's a whole party full of casters, they're likely not going to hit very hard with those things. So that can turn into a very challenging encounter very quickly. And so if you give them a good scare with an encounter like that, then when they go back and regroup, they can start to think, oh, maybe we'd better start thinking about tactics of having different types of damage in case we run into different types of monsters. That doesn't mean everybody switch out fire and now use cold, because what if you run into a bunch of things that are all immune to cold damage? That should have been the same problem that you were when everything that you fought was immune to fire. All right, so that can be kind of a fun thing for your, to test and play with novice players or with players that kind of are new in a party and don't quite have a good handle on what their characters can do yet. So where would you place these guys in a campaign? So mascots can be tossed into a campaign as low-level agents of chaos. Perhaps if you have a campaign set in the world of Strixhaven, or one that uses some of the capstone creatures in Strixhaven as NPC leaders or oracles or benefactors of the party, it might be that someone in opposition to the goals of the party may stir up some magic that results in the creation and loosing of the mascots. And those mascots could either appear as intended obstacles, such as henchmen hunting the party or guardians of some sort of low-level resource, or they might simply be spawned as a side effect of whatever magical energies the antagonist of your campaign is using. So they could be in some ways, evil incorporated, or whatever the big bad evil guy, big bad evil organization is in your campaign, is is intentionally creating these mascots and sending them out to hunt down the party. Or maybe they're doing some things and one of the byproducts is just these mascots start appearing because of the way the magical energies are coalescing, and they can be sort of a sign that powerful agents of the antagonist is nearby. If they start running into a cluster of these mascots in some area, oh, hey, this is a signal. There must be some powerful magic from our, evil incorporated is going on over here. So you can use those as sort of markers in several different ways if you are the DM and you want to sprinkle these into a campaign. It can either be they're actively hunting and antagonizing the party, or they're just sort of byproducts that signal something else is going on. All right. Now, how might we reskin these mascots? So in the Strixhaven campaign, there are 5 different varieties of mascot, and that makes a certain amount of sense because they echo the 5 colors of mana in Magic the Gathering. So you have the red, white, blue, black, and green are the colors of mana in Magic the Gathering. But in D&D 5th edition, there are 9 different energy types, if I'm counting correctly. So you might create variations of creatures that have similar mechanical structures of mascots, but that represent all the different energy types in D&D. So you have the acid, the cold, the fire, the force, the lightning, the necrotic, the poison, the radiance, and the thunder. So you could have, instead of 5 different types of mascots, you might have these 9 different types of mascots. Or if you wanted to get kind of funky the way that Magic the Gathering does, and sometimes have things that combine different colors, well, you could then start to have various permutations of these things, like Maybe one uses acid and fire, and maybe another uses both cold and thunder, or maybe another one uses both lightning and poison, or whatever it might be. So you could have all kinds of different variations based on some of the different mechanical stat blocks. As we've seen, there's at least one of these that has two different attack modes, and one does deal one type of damage where another one deals I think one deals force and one deals cold, and one of the other attack modes deals cold or whatever. So you could create an array of mascots that are built around the different conditions that can be imposed upon creatures in D&D as well. So you might have mascots that do things like blind creatures, charm creatures, deafen creatures, exhaust creatures, frighten creatures, grapple creatures, incapacitate creatures, make themselves invisible, paralyze creatures, petrify creatures, poison creatures, knock creatures prone, restrain creatures, stun creatures, and knock creatures unconscious. So those are all different kinds of ways you could sort of riff on this. There's 5 different kinds of mana, so we have 5 different kinds of mascots. Oh, well, there's 9 different kinds of energy, so we're going to have 9 different mascots. Or we have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 different conditions. So you could have 15 different types of mascots. And then, of course, if you want to make mascots that are more powerful, you can then sort of have an interplay of those. Some of them use different energy types and sort of impose conditions, or they use different energy types and they have multiple conditions that they could possibly oppose or impose, and multiple damage types that they can deal. And then if you wanted to get really complex, you could create mascots whose abilities are enhanced by the presence of other mascots with different abilities. Or maybe you could just wait until I homebrew slivers, and I throw them at the players in my Planeswalking campaign. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, I started playing Magic the Gathering when it first came out, and I stopped playing Magic the Gathering shortly after they moved on from that whole block, I forget which block it was, where they introduced us to the slivers. Because to me, sliver decks were peak Magic. Oh my god, those were so much fun. It's kind of a variation on the whole white weenie, and then you just throw any old kind of land in there, and pretty soon you have, every time you play a sliver, well, they all get flying, or they all get tougher, or they all deal more damage, or they all do this, or they all do that. They can all plink with fire damage or something, and it just gets ridiculous when you throw out a sliver deck. And if you build a sliver deck around multicolored land, then you can really start to have a very fun deck. But that was like, okay, I'm done with Magic because all I want to do is build a deck that's fun. And then there's all these dumb people out there that they want to be competitive with it. Who needs competitive Magic? Let's just play Magic for fun, damn it. Let's just go and have fun with this thing. So, as a DM, I can't wait to unleash slivers in D&D on my Planeswalking characters, so that every time a new monster comes in, whoop, they all now do something different than they did before that guy showed up. All right, so because that's the kind of DM I am. All right, now we've reached the end of our discussion. I want to go and check and see what kind of hey, Vulnerable Cucumber. Hey, how are you? Thanks for joining us this evening. I'm going to see if we have any questions in the chat room. I don't see any questions, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to run on into the wrap-up, and I will do that, and then I will come back and I will check on more questions again. Okay, so I have been DM Gallibond. This has been Monster Monday. We are here 4 times a week for live streams. I do my one mic live stream on Mondays, but then we have 3 ongoing campaigns that we do. We have that Planeswalking campaign I talked about, which is Sunday afternoons at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and that is the Walker of Waterdeep. Now, this coming Sunday, we will not have a game because the MLS season is beginning, and I have season tickets, and my team has a home match to open the season on Sunday. So I will be tailgating and sitting in the stadium that day watching my team. So we will not have that Sunday game this week, but you can find all the archives on YouTube. So between now and a week from Sunday, you can watch all 127 sessions of it and get all caught up so you can be ready for the next session. Then on Thursday nights, we will be playing that this week. We are doing the Sword Coast Chronicles. That's a 5th edition homebrew campaign that we're telling our homebrew story through the lens of the published 5th edition campaigns. And right now, they are at an exciting point. They are in the fight against Imrith, the Doom of the Desert, from the Storm King's Thunder campaign. So they have several metallic dragons that are on their side. They have several giants that are on their side helping them, and they're finding that Imrith has all kinds of defenders at her lair, and it's just a big, huge, fun melee that they are in. So it's probably the biggest fight they've ever been in terms of the number of enemies they're facing and the number of allies they have. Then on Saturday night, we go old school. We go retro. We are doing a 2nd edition campaign called Saturday Night Greyhawk. And right now, they are underneath the dungeons of the original Temple of Elemental Evil. And they are doing a big dungeon crawl through there. And oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. The hits just keep coming. Every time they go around the corner, they go to another room, and boom, there's a bunch of monsters in there. This is dungeons the way that Gary Gygax made them back in the day, and got a bunch of people in there. Some of them who love the old editions, some of them who've never played the old editions before. But we're kind of having a blast just through this big old dungeon crawl. So you can join us Saturday nights at 7:30 p.m. We will be playing that again this coming week as well. And when we get back to the Walker of Waterdeep in a week from Sunday, they are in a dungeon crawl there as well. They are in a plane inspired by the Magic the Gathering release of the Arabian Nights. So again, going old school, way back into the early history of Magic the Gathering. And they are in a plane that mechanically is inspired by the 2nd edition Dark Sun setting from D&D. So they're fighting monsters from Magic the Gathering that are reskinned versions of 2nd edition Dark Sun monsters, and they're using 5th edition D&D planeswalkers to try to battle that. And sometimes the battles go well for the PCs, and sometimes the battles really go against them because, oh boy, those old 2nd edition monsters, they had some nasty abilities. That was back in the days of you save versus poison or you die. It's not you save versus poison and take damage, or save versus poison and have a condition. You save versus poison or you die. So... that's back when life was cheap, and these guys, they're big tough planeswalkers, but it's like, oh crap. Some of these fights. So you can join us on Sunday afternoons for all those kinds of shenanigans that we do. We stream live on both Twitch and YouTube, and all of our archives are over on YouTube as well. We also have a Patreon, so if you want to help us be able to create more content and perhaps bring it to you with slightly better technology, go ahead and join us over on the Patreon, and we will We will do that next week on Monster Monday. We are going to come back and we're going to look at Belladros Witherbloom, which is one of the 5 founder dragons of the Strixhaven. Now, I mentioned that sometimes we're going to look at all of the monsters of a single type in a session. We're not going to look at all of the founder dragons in one session because these are all big, huge capstone, campaign ending type of monsters, and they all kind of draw from different draconic heritages through D&D, as well as all kinds of abilities inspired by Magic the Gathering. So we're going to look at each one of those separately as we come to them in alphabetical order in the Friends and Foes section of the campaign. All right, so we're going to go back and take a look to see if we have any more questions. I don't see any there, and I don't see any there. All right, well, thank you guys so much for joining us. And oh, phooey, that's not the right thing. I need to put you on there. So I am going to leave you on this screen, and then I am going to go quickly look and see if we can find anybody else who is streaming some D&D, and we will raid them. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. All right, we'll take a look for Dungeons and Dragons and Dungeons and Dragons thing, and yeah, let's go back over here towards the fire while we're doing, or towards the stage, and we'll listen to some music while I'm looking for this for you guys. All right, let us see. Okay, all right, Revolter is doing some Avernus. So let's go ahead and let us raid Revolter. Alright everybody, thank you all so much for hanging out with us tonight. Hope you have enjoyed Monster Monday, and we will see you next week here. Hopefully we'll catch you on some other streams, and remember, as always, to watch out for the monsters that are under the bed. Good night, everybody.